Hi, and welcome to 3 o'clock with SOC. I'm Marisol Diaz, Communications and Digital Manager. Give me a moment while I welcome our Spanish-speaking residents. Buenas tardes, gracias por estar con nosotros hoy en 3 en punto con SOC. Si quieren oír este programa en español, favor de marcar el número que aparece en la pantalla, que es 646-749-3122, y la contraseña para entrar es 779-328-221. And just a reminder that you can access this show and previous shows on our Facebook page in the videos area and on YouTube. Now I'll pass it over to our moderator of the day, who will introduce today's topic.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to 3 o'clock with SOC. I am Marlene Zaran, the COVID-19 project coordinator and the forum coordinator for this Facebook forum. I would like to just let everyone know that our services to the community through SOC are still available to the community virtually. You can contact us at 414-672-8090. You can also email us at soc@socmilwaukee.org, and you can also reach our site at www.socmilwaukee.org for all of your resources relating to civic, COVID-19, and other information regarding the census. I'd like to just let everyone know that SOC has a survey, and we'd love for you to complete it. Our SOC survey helps to give us feedback so we can better understand how we're doing on a daily basis and how we can improve and what topics that you would like us to talk about today. So all of the SOC's staff is working virtually from home, and that is why you see on the screen, I'm not wearing a mask on the screen, and I'm currently at home, so that is why I'm not wearing one. If I were in the office or I was around individuals, I would be wearing that mask, of course. So for those of you that are here and that are tuning in today, I would love for you to say hello and say hi. May that be by saying hi or by just putting in an emoji that is your favorite. We love to know our viewers, and we love to see which viewers are watching our forum on a daily basis so we can keep track of who's our all-stars or not. Just a quick disclaimer, the views and opinions shared today do not necessarily reflect those of SOC. I'd just like to give some quick announcements now that for Friday, we're not having a forum show because it is Labor Day weekend. And also Monday, we are off because of Labor Day. Tuesday, and we're not necessarily sure who's coming on yet. There's been some schedule changes. Wednesday, we have an individual coming on from Voces. Thursday, we have Carmen Petrie from the Sojourner Hope Peace Home, and Mariana Rodriguez from the Latino Resource Center at UMO. So they will be coming on with me on Thursday for the COVID-19 segment. And we're going to be talking about mental health trauma within domestic violence homes and how a parent can help guide their child through that once they're out of that type of situation. Friday, we are also having an amazing individual, Dr. Monique Liston. So then now I would like to bring on our guest for today, our main guest. Her name is Arnita Holloman. She is the Recast Program Manager from the Office of Violence Prevention, City of Milwaukee Health Department. Our critical topic for today is going to be mental health of the African American and Afro-Latinx population in regards to COVID-19 and police brutality, and how all of these aspects have exacerbated the mental health crisis within Milwaukee. So Arnita Holloman is currently not on yet. So I'm just going to go ahead and play our recorded video of President and CEO Janan Najib of the Milwaukee Muslim Women's Coalition. She's going to be speaking about our Peaceful Home Project, a new domestic violence program. It's essentially part 2 of it because we played part 1 earlier this week. So it was a really intriguing interview, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of it.
Can you explain to us what the process is for individuals that do contact the project that you're working on? And so, you know, say someone is in a domestic violence situation and they need help, they pick up the phone, they call you guys. What do they do next? How does it work?
Right. So it's a process. If you know, they feel that it's a situation that their life is in danger, we definitely ask them to call 911, or we can call 911 on their behalf and inform, you know, the law enforcement exactly what's happening. Most often the cases we have are individuals where this has been a long-term issue or something that has been going on, and they've been, you know, hoping that things will change. But, you know, if you keep putting people in the same situation and there are no services, you're just going to end up with the same results. So we'll have an individual that will come to us if we feel, again, it's a case of severe violence, and there's a risk to them, a risk to their children. We always ask the individual what they want to do, because it has to be their decision. So sometimes what they're looking for is a restraining order. Then we have advocates that will accompany them and help them to get restraining orders. Sometimes they are looking just for information, in which case the advocate will go through a safety plan. What happens, you know, if this happens, what should you do? What options do you have? What services are out there? And sometimes we have clients that basically just are leaving with you know, the clothes on their back, and they're just, they don't want to look back. It's a situation that maybe has been going on for many years, and they've tried, you know, time and again. In which case, sometimes we will have to put them in emergency housing, them and their children, until we can find transitional housing. We have found that particularly within the Muslim community, and for many cultural reasons, for example, our clients usually don't want to be in shelters. But putting them in an emergency housing, a hotel, that type of situation, until we can get them into a place where they can feel, you know, safe and have their own place, that's usually what they want. And then once we do get them into a transitional housing, you know, we work with other agencies like the Latina Resource Center and others, where we and some refugee groups as well, where we'll get them furniture, we'll get them supplies, we'll get them what they need. We set them up so that they can get benefits. And then during these 6 months, we help them to get on their feet so that they can start to provide for themselves as well.
Well, that's amazing. Is there a cost for this?
There is no cost at all to the client. This is all government funded, and that even includes some attorney fees that will be covered if they're seeking certain you know, representation. That includes interpretation services as a culturally specific program, working with quite an array of different backgrounds in the Muslim community. So we have quite a number of individuals that speak different languages, and so that will also be provided to them. So there's no fee at all. It's really a matter of helping these families to either work out the issues they have, or seek another option. And safety for them and their children is also always a priority.
That's really great. Can you give us any contact information for the Our Peace Project?
Yeah, sure. This is, our center is the Islamic Resource Center. We are located at 5235 South 27th Street in Greenfield. Our main phone number is 414-727-4900. And the direct line to our peaceful home is 414-727-1090.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much for coming on with us today. I really appreciate it. And we'll have Janan on as a primary guest for one of our Thursdays in the next upcoming weeks to really talk about the Milwaukee Muslim Women's Coalition. Thank you so much. And we'll have all of that information to contact the Our Peaceful Project in the comments section, so you can click on that and find all of your details if you need any help or if you know someone that needs help. Thank you so much, Jan.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, that was a video I created with Dr. Janan Najib. She's an amazing woman and making big changes in our neighborhoods and community right now. Again, the project, Domestic Violence Project with the Milwaukee Muslim Women's Coalition, is not just for individuals that are Muslim. It is open to anyone that needs help right now. So besides, other facilities like the Latino Women's Resource Center and the Sojourner Hope Peace Home, you can definitely reach out to them and get some help, especially if you are of Middle Eastern immigrant refugee descent. There's that cultural sensitivity, and they're really aware of the cultural aspect of things and what to look for when dealing with individuals that come from that background. So now I'm going to bring on Arnita Holloman. She is from the Recast program. She's a Recast program manager from the Office of Violence Prevention at the City of Milwaukee Health Department. She's here with me today to talk about the mental health of the African American and Afro-Latinx population during this time. When I mean during this time, it means not only have individuals had, that experienced racism and, being undocumented and all of those issues. But on top of it, there's COVID-19 and there's police brutality. And during this time, it's important to talk about these topics so we can better help our brothers and sisters. So I'm here and now going to bring on Arnita. Hi, Arnita. How are you today?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm really happy that you can come on with us today. Let's start. You can give us an introduction of who you are and what your role is with the Office of Violence Prevention.
Sure. So again, I'm Arnita Holloman. I'm the Recast program manager for OVP. So the Office of Violence Prevention is located, we are a part of the city's health department. My role is really working with the Recast grant. It's a grant we received, a federal grant we received from SAMHSA, and it was awarded to cities that experience civil unrest. And so it's a 5-year grant, $1 million a year, 5 years. We are wrapping up the 4th year, or about to start the 5th year, and unfortunately here again experiencing civil unrest as a result of police brutality, which is precisely why our city was awarded the grant several years ago. So managing those partnerships that we have in the community, as well as, in any ways that I can help in terms of connecting folks to mental health or behavioral health services if they've experienced something traumatic or are survivors of, gun violence or any kind of violence in the community.
Right. Before we begin, can we quickly touch on the Recast free training opportunities that individuals can access?
Absolutely. So Recast is an acronym for Resiliency in Communities After Stress and Trauma. And it's focused on, promoting mental health and well-being and justice and equity Again, in cities or communities that experience civil unrest, our target population are ages 12 to 24 and families. A part of what we do is we subgrant those funds to organizations in the community. One of them is Community Advocates, the Public Policy Institute. And so they provide free trainings for community members. So there are some professionals that will take the training, or anyone in the community can take the training. And a number of the trainings are mental health first aid or youth mental health first aid or trauma and substance abuse. And so there are a number of, again, trainings that are offered for free of charge. And so you can find those on Community Advocates website and contact them as well if you'd like to be added to their listserv to get information about upcoming trainings.
That's awesome. That's really great. So anyone can essentially participate? Okay.
Absolutely. Yep.
And, you know, through those trainings, individuals can definitely utilize them to help their own communities. And, you know, even if you know someone that has a mental health issue and you want to try to help them out with it, but you don't really know how, you can take these trainings and it'll give you the proper steps to take moving forward. Yeah. So now that we have covered that, I would like to ask you our first question, which is, how has COVID-19 had an impact on the mental health of the African-American population, but not just in the African-American population, there's also the Afro-Latinx population. So can you talk about that?
Sure. That's a great question. And we've, you know, in many ways been having this conversation throughout this pandemic, and we're still experiencing a global pandemic, even though at times we may forget, depending on, you know, our positioning, but it has had an effect on the mental health of, you know, Black folks, and partly because we understand the disparities around the health disparities. And we know initially the numbers were much higher for Black people than for their white counterparts. And so not only in terms of positive cases, but also in deaths. And so whenever there is something to this magnitude, unfortunately, it's also going to expose all of the other problems that underlie why we see those differences in rates. And so it's both people having the experience of, you know, never being quarantined before, right? So for many people, this whole stay-at-home order was a brand new thing, never experienced a lot of shifting in terms of work locations and duties. Some folks lost jobs, losing, you know, apartment or home, whatever, you know, their financial loss, also the disconnection from close others. So people that we would normally be in contact with, whether that's our coworker, physical contact space, whether it's our coworkers or family members or loved ones. And so all of that can weigh on a person's mental health. For some people, they were experiencing exacerbated or worsened, say, anxiety symptoms because of the worry, like, will I contract, you know, COVID-19? If so, how will I fare? You know, all of those things, being worried about loved ones, if they have a loved one or a friend, you know, family member that is an essential worker who would, you know, increases their risk for exposure. Those are things that people were concerned about. Also, just the isolation for people who don't have someone living at home with them, or they're living in an unsafe environment. So that definitely has been weighing on people as it relates to their mental health and well-being.
Right, of course. Can we speak about how, you know, there has been, so these have just been like recent health disparities that have just been, light has just been shed onto them due to the pandemic. But it is not just the pandemic, you know, that has increased these health disparities and brought light to them. It is also the fact that there's a whole background of health disparities that have been implemented in, you know, African American and the Black community's lives for generations. And so when we talk about that, we talk about, the racism that individuals have to face on a daily basis and how that affects their lives. So on top of it, you also have these health disparities that are being combined as one and really putting a toll on the Black community's lives. So yeah.
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right. It's not something that is new. Obviously shining the light, uncovering, and really, and when I'm saying uncovering, I want to be mindful of the fact that we already knew these disparities exist. Communities of color, Black folk already knew these disparities existed. And because of structural racism, because of inequity in terms of, access to healthcare, quality of healthcare, all of those things, among a number of things. If you're living in a food desert, if you can't, afford, healthier food, whatever that might be, all those things are going to play into why we then see people have positive cases more so, or more Black people were dying as a result of it. And this is the very reason why we need to hit hard on and address the issues around race and racism and structural violence. And so when we talk about violence, our office focuses on preventing violence, but structural violence is racism. It is systemic oppression. It is structural oppression, the ways in which systems are designed that both oppress and then don't provide, the adequate care or resources that people need to be healthy, because Black folk don't care any less about their health than anybody else. We want to live healthy and thriving lives and live a long life, just like everyone else. But when you have, hundreds of years of structural racism and systems that were not designed to serve us well, then these are the outcomes.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk about how? Can you give an example of an individual's life and how a health disparity can block them from fully thriving or fully getting access to healthcare or a job? So I think that would give individuals a better idea of what health disparities are in a real world situation, because we are using these terminologies and a lot of individuals are not aware of them. So I think it's best to kind of give an example of what a health disparity is, and then how that can, stop someone from really, growing in their life.
Yeah, that's a great question. And thank you for saying that, because sometimes we do use terminology and with the assumption that everybody knows what we're talking about. So a health disparity is basically, you're seeing poor health outcomes for particular groups of people, typically for some specific reason. So if we take, for example, ACEs, so most people have heard about adverse childhood experiences, and this is just one example. So if you look at the ACEs, for people who had higher incidences of, traumatic incidents or in their childhood, or adverse experiences rather in their childhood, the higher the score, the higher the risk for health, poor health outcomes. So that may mean heart disease, stroke, high blood pressure, any of those things. And then if you couple that with a healthcare system that does not provide equal and adequate care to Black folk, then you've now compounded an issue that was never that person's fault to begin with. If you're a child, it's not your fault if you're abused, or if your parents can't afford to live in a better neighborhood because of structural racism and other issues, poverty, and so on. And so then you're exposed to these incidences, which put you at a greater risk for poor health outcomes. And then you go into a medical system that does not provide you adequate care. And so access to healthcare. So how do you get to your provider? Do you have a provider that really takes the time to meet with you, that really listens to you? We've seen reports in the news of celebrities. So Beyonce, was it Venus, I can't remember which one. Right. So they talk about their own experiences in childbirth. And we've heard numerous stories where people either have died because they did not get proper care, or they could have died as a result of it. And there's enough research to show that it is mostly because they didn't get the care they should have received because of their race. And so there's so many people that I've even had experiences where I felt like my doctor was not listening to me. And people know their bodies. They know when something is wrong, when something is off. But if something is not treated quickly and adequately or properly, that could mean death. And unfortunately, that has meant death for far too many people.
Yeah. And a lot of the times, so like you're saying, it's been, research has shown that, Black women, their health issues have just been dismissed by their doctors because it's this kind of like implicit bias, as you would say, that individuals of color are more exaggerated when it comes to their health issues. And so that's not the case. A lot of the time women, we know our bodies, we know something is up. So it's really interesting. And I believe that the medical system needs to really work on the way that they train their doctors in regards to cultural awareness, when it comes to, minority populations that they're working with. So that being said, regarding COVID-19, individuals of, that come from the Black community, if they do have COVID-19, they don't have, access to insurance, they don't have access to a medical clinic near them. If they need to take a whole day off of work in order for them to go to the doctor to get checked for COVID-19 or get tested, a lot of individuals don't have the privilege to do that. And so that causes, COVID-19 to just not only, spread within the community due to, lack of like health education of COVID within minority populations, but because of lack of access to healthcare.
Yeah.
Because they are sharing their homes with like multi-generations of different individuals. Because of, the African American and Black community, they do have the highest rates of, health issues within Milwaukee regarding, heart, any heart issues and diabetes and obesity. So.
And so to that point, one, I want to say there are also far too many stories of people, Black folk, who tried to get tested and were turned away, or hospital or whatever said, well, wherever they went, you don't need to be tested, or just consider that you do have symptoms, you have symptoms, you have it. And so just not even being given the human decency and dignity to even administer the test. And so that in and of itself is a problem. And then when you talk about, again, rates of, say, heart disease or high blood pressure or any of those things, we have to take into consideration stress and what stress does to the body, and how, stress raises those, our cortisol, our stress hormones, but that also raises other things. It creates other problems, right? So when cortisol goes up, it also raises our blood pressure and a number of things. Now, if you think about traumatic stress or prolonged stress, chronic stress, you've been stressed for a long period of time, it's stressful not being able to, when you have to decide between paying for your medication or your rent. It's stressful when you live in an environment where there is, violence in the environment or in the community or even inside of your home. Any of those things can create, a situation where someone is stressed chronically. And so that it absolutely is going to affect our health.
Exactly. And so now that brings us to the topic of police brutality in Milwaukee and how that in itself increases stress, builds anxiety. Can you talk more about that and how you've seen like rates of anxiety increase within Milwaukee?
So You're right. Yes. So absolutely, it also is another significant stressor for Black folks, and similar to the issue with COVID and the disparities in terms of positive cases and deaths. We knew that there was racism, right? We didn't just find out that there were issues with police brutality. It is just, it's videoed, it's aired, and we see it more frequently than we perhaps saw it before. The other part that is extremely stressful, and that can, affect our mental health, is that when we see these videos, when we are met with dissension, or we are met with, well, we need some more evidence. You know what? We really need to wait and hear the whole story. And when you see it as blatantly as you see it, and when you're, stay away from the comment section, because comment sections can be horrible. But folks that are saying, you're playing the race card, it just has nothing to do with race. Those things can, again, create more stress. It's the microaggressions, it's all macroaggressions, all of those things. On top of the fact that, like I said, we already knew this existed. We already knew it was an issue. And then we see police who have used excessive force, who have murdered Black folk in the street, choked them out, chokehold, knee on the neck, shooting someone in the back 7 times.
Yeah.
All of these instances, it can be trauma inducing to even watch those things, but then to not see police officers and police departments held accountable. And even when they are arrested and may be charged, to get off on that. And we know what's happening, and we know why it's happening. And so that adds to the frustration, the anger, any of those things. But it also adds to a decline in our mental, health. So it can create, a situation where somebody develops a mental illness, or, it gets worse. And so I think that we're seeing just more anxiety. There are more people that are just reporting that they are exhausted, tired. And this is not just a physical tired. People are emotionally drained, emotionally tired. There's a meme going around, which I've shared on my page before. Your Black friends are emotionally drained, and it is the absolute truth. I've heard it over and over again. And then I'm also a therapist. So I'm a licensed professional counselor, but even among clinicians, we're tired. And clinicians are having to help their clients work through all of the other experiences, all the other traumas, everything else that's going on top of their clients who are also, experiencing distress as a result of police brutality and what's happening. All the while, as a clinician, you're also experiencing the same thing. So you're helping someone process and work through and heal traumas that you are experiencing simultaneously. And so I've talked quite a bit about, we're experiencing a collective trauma. We're also experiencing a collective grief.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that. I'm so glad we're talking about this.
Yeah.
This is definitely, and I'd love for you to come back on again, so we can dismantle all of these issues and all of these different health disparities that are apparent within our communities, but it's just not talked about, and so I totally agree with you. There's that secondhand trauma when you are a clinician, and it is passed down to you as well. And yeah, as a collective, it has been apparent. A lot of my, Black and African American friends have been telling me, they're like, oh my God, I can't handle this. Like, I need a weekend away. Like, come on, let's go. And I'm like, girl, I got you, like, we can handle this together, So I think it is important to reach out to, individuals within our Black community. If they're your friends, your family, ask them if they're okay. How are they doing? Do they need to hang out, social distance wise? Talk about the issues together. And, it not only does it bring awareness to the issues for those individuals that are not, individuals of color, but it really helps, the other side of the story, the African American and Black population, to release that stress, to get it off their shoulders. And it's important to talk about, and I'm glad we're talking about it today.
Yeah. And I say reach out for help, ask for what you need. Don't be afraid to do that. Don't be ashamed to do it. There's still a lot of stigma around mental illness. Mental health is just like physical health. You have it. Everybody has mental health, whether it's good, fair, poor, whatever. But, don't be afraid to reach out for help if you know that you're struggling, you're experiencing distress, or you just need somebody to, like you said, kick back with and, have some time away from all of the noise.
Yeah. And I wanted to quickly ask you, are there any resources that individuals can utilize from the Office of Violence Prevention, and, to help cope with everything that's going on?
Sure. So if someone is looking to connect with a therapist, one, if you're in crisis, if it's not an emergency, emergency, call 911. But if you want to call a crisis line, Milwaukee County Behavioral Health has a crisis line. That number is 414-257-7222. 414-257-7222. That's the crisis line. Also, if you want to connect with a therapist, there are a number of ways you can do that. The best way I think is ask someone that getting referrals. So people who know somebody or they're seeing that therapist and they're great. So ask around. You can, if you have insurance, you can call the back of your insurance card. You can also look on, their websites, Therapy for Black Girls, Therapy for Black, I think there's one Therapy for Black Men, or Black boys, but I know Therapy for Black Girls. There are a number of other sites that you can go to. Taraji P. Henson has a foundation and they're a therapist on that particular site. The Mary Ellen Strong Foundation, that's more local. So there are therapists in both Wisconsin and Minnesota listed there. So there are a number of ways to get help, but definitely reach out if you need it.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to get that list from you. Then we can make a post about it and share it on our Facebook page.
Absolutely.
And it's been great having you on, Arnita. I would love for you to come on again in the next couple of weeks. So we
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Definitely. Of course. All right, everyone. So what a great, riveting conversation to have with Arnita Holloman from the Office of Violence Prevention. It's really great to see all of these resources that individuals can utilize within the community for mental health. And it's important to talk about mental health. There's a huge stigma behind it in a lot of our populations and demographics, and it's important to break down that stigma and to see a therapist if you need a therapist, do some mental health daily tasks that can help you on a daily basis, even if it's just going for a walk for 15 minutes or painting. It's always great. So now I'm going to play our civic video, which is it's a voting timeline that we're going to play. So here you go.
Hey everyone, so today I'm just going to walk you through the voting timeline leading up until the election on November 3rd. So as you can see on here, now through October 23rd, on top it says you can request your absentee ballot online or by mail. And under that, it does say that October 29th is technically a legal deadline to request your absentee ballot, but it is not recommended to wait that long because we are expecting postal delays. So if you wait until October 29th to request your ballot, you likely won't get it on time for it to count. The next important date is September 17th. This is the day that the clerks have to send out the first round of absentee ballots that are already on file requested. So then the next important date after that is October 14th, which is the last day to register to vote by mail or online. And so now through October 14th, you can register to vote by mail or online. And then after the 14th, from October 15th to 30th, it's a closed registration period. So if you do want to register to vote, it would have to be at the clerk's office at 200 East Wells Street, room 501, or you can also go to an early voting location and you can register to vote at early voting locations. Then the next important chunk of dates is October 20th through November 1st. That's when early voting will be available, and then absentee ballot drop box locations will also be available. So you can register to vote at these early voting locations, or you can drop off your absentee ballots at these locations. Moving forward, then October 23rd, like we said earlier, is the practical deadline to request your absentee ballot online. And then October 27th is the practical deadline to return your absentee ballot by mail. So it says below that USPS, the Postal Service, recommends that you allow a full week for your completed absentee ballot to be delivered. After that date, you should return your absentee ballot at a drop box, because if you don't return it with a full week to be mailed, then it likely won't arrive on time to be counted. So again, if you have an absentee ballot, make sure you mail it by October 27th so that it has a full week to get to the clerk's office. After that, again, October 29th is the legal deadline to request an absentee ballot, but you should not wait until October 29th. It's unrealistic to wait that late to expect to receive it and return it in time to be counted. And then finally, November 3rd is election day. So polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And on this day, if you still happen to have your absentee ballot, you must return it to a designated location by 8 p.m. And so we don't know exactly what those locations will be at this point, but we will make sure everyone is made aware. Most likely it will be the clerk's office downtown, 200 East Wells Street, or the Election Commission warehouse, which is on South Kinnickinnick Avenue. So keep that in mind, and these are the important dates to consider moving forward. And all of these things can be done. So registering to vote, requesting your absentee ballot, checking where your voting location is, knowing what's on your ballot, all of these things can be found in the link that is shared in the comments. So please look to our comments and go to that link to find out all that information and to do what you need to do to make sure you can vote in the November 3rd election. Thank you all for listening, and I'll be back with you on another forum.
All right, get your absentee ballots, everyone. I'd like to just quickly go ahead and say hello to a few people that have commented. Hello to Enrique. Hello from Trine. Any other hellos from today? Hello from Mary. Well, it's great to have you guys on with us today. Now we're going to play our census video that is called Leo's Story. So here you go.
Meet Leo. Leo and his family have been living in the same community most of their lives, but lately he's noticed a change. Schools are getting a little more crowded, the drive a little longer, and there are fewer child care centers available. Not to mention federal assistance programs have become more limited. Leo realized that the lack of a strong voice representing his community has resulted in many of these problems being overlooked, which is why he's decided to participate in the U.S. Census. Participating in the census will help ensure that his community receives its fair share of funding for public services and fair political representation. Like Leo, you too can make a change by getting counted. Stay informed about the upcoming 2020 census by contacting Naleo Educational Fund. Text census to 97779 or call 1-877-352-3676.
All right, everybody should do and complete their census. Actually, my cousins just filled out theirs, and it was because someone came to their door and asked them if they have time to fill it out. So if you do see anyone coming to your door that is working with census, you can definitely sit down with them 5 feet apart, of course, wearing a mask, and answer all of the questions. It's very basic information, and it has nothing to do with your current citizenship status. So just remember that when someone is knocking on your door and they have census gear on. And now I'd like to introduce Pedro Hernandez. He's a staff attorney at the Legal Aid Society of Milwaukee. He's going to be talking about the new eviction moratorium and, any other updates that we have for today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Hi, Pedro. Always great to have you on. I'm just going to introduce you. I have introduced you, but you can take the floor from here and say what you have to say about the new update.
Sure. As some of you probably know already, if you guys have seen on Facebook or on the news so far, there is a new eviction moratorium that will be coming down or taking effect hopefully tomorrow from the Center for Disease Control through an order that they're giving that does not take effect until it is published in the Federal Register, which it is scheduled to be published tomorrow, September 4th. This order basically applies to just about all residential renters in Wisconsin, but it's very different from the older federal moratorium, which only protected people that were in properties that were federally backed by in financing or some type of mortgage. So I think the most important thing that you have to remember with the new moratorium that's going to take effect hopefully by tomorrow is that it is not automatic. You have to fill out a declaration form, which organizations like Legal Aid Society of Milwaukee will have available on their websites, and that you should talk to an attorney about to fill it out, because this declaration form makes sure that you qualify for it. And the things that you have to the requirements that are needed for you to qualify for the new moratorium include: you have to declare or testify under perjury, under penalty of perjury, so under oath basically, that you use your best efforts to obtain all government assistance about renting or housing. That includes rent assistance like the emergency rent assistance at like UMOS, or RAP funds that the Social Development Corporation has, or I'm forgetting, or like the rent assistance programs that Community Advocates has. You have to test that you tried that and it didn't work. You also have to attest, or basically testify, that you will make less than $99,000 this year, or if you're a joint filer with your couple, spouse, $198,000 for 2020. Or you got a stimulus check under the CARES Act, or weren't required to report your income in 2019. As you can see, these are pretty large margins for those of us that live on the South Side, and that's why it covers a lot of people that live in the state of Wisconsin, and particularly in Milwaukee and in the South Side. Also, you have to testify that you're unable to pay the full rent because of substantial loss of work, because of changes in hours and income or work, or also extraordinary out-of-pocket medical expenses. For that means that you have to prove that the medical expenses are so large that it is about 7.5% of your income. And a lawyer or some social worker should be able to help you figure out if your medical expenses this year come out to that. Furthermore, you have to testify on that declaration, that form, which the order provides and which organizations like Legal Aid have copies of, or have made their own versions of, that you are making the best efforts to make timely partial payments. You're at least trying to make the payments that you can right now. And that an eviction would likely leave you homeless or force you to live in a setting like a homeless shelter, because there is a lack of available housing options in the area that would not increase your housing costs. So basically that there is no cheaper rental option that wouldn't leave you homeless. So again, like I said, this declaration includes a form that you can use, but again, organizations like Legal Aid are working on creating English, Spanish versions of it so that it is available for everybody. And also important to note is that you cannot lie on these declarations. You cannot be caught lying just because there is a penalty of perjury. And those who violate this order, whether it be the tenant or the landlord, could face criminal penalties. But here's what the moratorium doesn't do. We talked about the requirements and also knowing that it basically stops landlords from taking action to remove you or cause to remove you in an eviction, not simply just filing an eviction. So arguably what us housing defense attorneys can try to argue in court right now, based off of the letter of the law, is that if you have an active writ or an active judgment against you and have not been evicted, we may try to argue, based off of the language of the law right now, that even those evictions have to be stopped under the order as soon as it's published. So it's something to get on top of if you can, as fast as you can. But what this moratorium doesn't do, it doesn't relieve you from your obligation to pay rent. The rent will accumulate. And when this order is done, which it is scheduled to be done if it takes effect, when it takes effect and you qualify, this order goes through December 31st, 2020. So on January 1st, all that old rent is going to be owed. All those late fees and penalties are going to be owed. Also, it doesn't prevent evictions for other reasons like breaching some other provision of your contract or lease. It doesn't affect foreclosures. So if you're being evicted because of foreclosure, it won't affect you, unfortunately. It won't protect you, likely. And then also, it does not protect people that are residing in basically hotels, motels, rooming houses, and those kinds of properties. But you should talk to an attorney just to make sure whether or not your rooming house falls under the state definition of a rooming house. As always, if you have questions or need more information, please contact us at Legal Aid, and please reach out to your community organizations to make sure that you have the assets necessary to help avoid an eviction and be able to pay your rent. But again, this is a new eviction moratorium that should be starting tomorrow. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us and reach out to your other organizations in order to help you. That's all I have right now.
Well, thank you so much, Pedro. Just quickly, is there a cost for this?
A what?
A cost if someone reaches out to your organization?
Sure. As always, Legal Aid Society of Milwaukee is a nonprofit legal service that is free of charge if you qualify based on our income guidelines, and also that there are no conflicts with our current or past clients. We are an organization that represents people regardless of legal status. And that is something I forgot to note. For my people, the undocumented population of Milwaukee should be protected under this simply because it does not differentiate between those that have legal status or don't. For instance, the income just says you won't make more than $99,000 this year, not necessarily that you have to have filed. That doesn't look like that's in the order right now. But so we can argue for undocumented folks too in this case.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Pedro. You guys can reach out to Legal Aid Society at 728 North James Lovell Street. You can also call 414-727-5300. And we also have Pedro's information in the comment section as well. You can call his office at 414-727-5370, or you can email him at PATRNAMBEZ@lasmilwaukee.com for information and if you need their help.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. That was a lot of information, and I hope it helped everyone. This eviction moratorium is going to be a good thing for individuals that do need help right now. So that being said, we're going to have our producer Marisol play our survey.
Has this live forum been informative and useful to you? What part of the forum could be improved or changed to make it better? Please take our quick survey that's located in the comments section so that we can keep 3 o'clock with SOC going for residents. Thank you for tuning in.
All right. So just some reminders. Tomorrow we are not having a forum, so enjoy your Labor Day weekend, as well as Monday we will not have a forum. And then next week, look out for individuals such as Voces and Carmen Pitre and Mariana Rodriguez and Dr. Liston to come on next week. Again, Southside Organizing Center is in solidarity with protesters and families during this time, and our thoughts and prayers go out to those that have been affected by COVID-19 and those that have passed due to COVID-19. We send out our prayers and blessings regarding your family members that have been affected or friends. Finally, we have a partner thank you video that has been created by our elder adult, Esperanza Gutierrez. And yeah, I hope you all have a great weekend and you enjoy your time off if you have time off, but have a good day.
Hello, viewers. I am Esperanza Gutierrez, a longtime resident of the near South Side. We would like to thank everyone for supporting our 3 o'clock with SOC live show and for completing our SOC survey. In addition to thanking our residents for tuning in and sharing our show, we would also like to thank the following sponsors: Wisconsin Voices, Community Development Block Grant, Neo Philanthropy State Infrastructural Fund, the Movement Voter Project, the Catholic Campaign for Human Development, the Silber Foundation, City of Milwaukee Office of Violence Prevention, the Tithe Foundation, the City of Milwaukee Promise Zone, and all the faithful individuals who support SOC through their personal donations. Thank you. Gracias.